She was only 19, sold like property to the cruelest cattle baron in the West. No one came to save her. No one even tried. But then, a mysterious scout appeared in the shadows. He didn't fear the baron, and he didn't follow his rules. What he did next changed everything, and turned survival into war. Watch till the end to see who really saved her. And don't The sky had not seen rain in months. It hung above the Carter Ranch like a faded painting, colorless, cracked, and empty of promise. The land below matched it, dry soil split open in jagged lines, as if the earth itself had given up. The wind carried dust instead of hope, whispering through broken fence posts and dead crops. Eliza Carter stood at the edge of what used to be her father's field. 19 years old, and already tired of surviving. Her boots pressed into the brittle ground as she stared out at the horizon, remembering what this place used to be. She could almost hear her father's laughter, feel the warmth of long summer days when the fields were alive, golden, endless. But that was before. Before the drought, before the debts, before her father was lowered into the same dry earth that had failed him. Behind her, the screen door creaked open. "You still standing there like that field's gonna fix itself?" Her stepfather's voice cut through the silence, sharp, impatient, and always just a little too loud. Thomas Carter had never been a gentle man, but after her father's death, whatever restraint he had left seemed to rot away. Eliza didn't turn around. "It won't," she said quietly. "Then get inside. We got company." That made her pause. Company was rare these days. No one came to a dying ranch unless they wanted something. And lately, everyone wanted something. Eliza brushed the dust from her skirt and walked back toward the house, each step heavier than the last. Something in her chest tightened. Not fear exactly, but something close. Instinct. The kind that whispers before something changes forever. Inside, the air felt different. Tense. At the small wooden table sat a man Eliza had never seen before. He didn't belong here. Everything about him said so. His coat was too clean, his boots too polished, his posture too straight. While the Carter home sagged with exhaustion, this man carried control like it was stitched into his bones. And then there were his eyes. Cold, measuring, like he was already deciding the worth of everything in the room, including her. Her stepfather stood beside him, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Eliza," he said, too casually, "this here's Mr. Whitaker." The name landed heavy. Even in isolation, stories traveled. Baron Hale Whitaker, the cattle king, the man whose lands stretched across counties, whose herds numbered in the thousands, and whose reputation was darker than any storm cloud the sky had refused to deliver. Eliza felt it immediately. Danger. Whitaker didn't stand. He didn't greet her. He simply looked at her, slowly, deliberately, as if inspecting something he was considering buying. Her skin crawled. "Eliza Carter," he said finally, his voice calm and low. 19, I'm told." She didn't answer, didn't trust herself to. Her stepfather stepped in quickly. "She's strong, works hard, knows the land. Worth more than she looks, I'll tell you that." Worth. The word echoed. Eliza's stomach tightened. Whitaker leaned back slightly in his chair, his gaze never leaving her. "I'm sure she is." Silence followed. Uncomfortable. Then, the sound of coins. A small leather pouch hit the table with a dull, unmistakable weight. Eliza's heart skipped. No. Her eyes flicked to her stepfather. He was already reaching for it. No. You said this settles it? Thomas asked. It does, Whitaker replied evenly. Your debts are cleared. The land remains yours. Eliza's breath caught. No. Her stepfather opened the pouch just enough to see inside. Gold glinted back at him. His expression shifted. Relief, greed, desperation, all tangled together. Then he nodded. Deal's done. The world didn't stop. It didn't shatter. It simply shifted. Quietly. Irrevocably. Eliza stepped forward. What deal? Neither man answered her. She looked at her stepfather, her voice rising. What deal, Thomas? He avoided her eyes. That was answer enough. No, she said, shaking her head. No, you don't get to just stand there. You're going with him. Thomas snapped suddenly, his patience gone. That's the deal. The words hit harder than any blow. Eliza blinked, once, twice, as if the world might rearrange itself into something that made sense. With him? She repeated, her voice barely a whisper. Whitaker stood now, slow and deliberate. You'll be taken to my ranch, he said. In return, you'll work. Work. The words sounded clean, almost reasonable. But nothing about this felt clean. You sold me, Eliza said, turning back to Thomas. He clenched his jaw. I did what I had to do. I'm not cattle, she shot back. No, he said coldly, but you were the only thing I had left to trade. The sentence didn't just hurt. It hollowed something out inside her. For a moment, she couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Everything she had endured, the hunger, the loss, the loneliness, none of it compared to this. Not because of what was happening, but because of who allowed it. Her own blood, her last connection to family, gone, reduced to a transaction. Whitaker stepped toward her, his presence heavy and unyielding. You can walk, he said calmly, or you can be taken. The outcome remains the same. Eliza looked at him then, really looked, and what she saw wasn't just cruelty. It was certainty. This was a man who had never been told no, and had never needed to ask twice. Her fists clenched at her sides. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to fight, to do anything but stand there and accept it. But where would she go? The land was dead. The world beyond it was worse. And men like Whitaker, they didn't lose what they claimed. Slowly, painfully, Eliza forced herself to move. One step, then another. Not because she accepted it, but because she refused to give him the satisfaction of dragging her. As she passed her stepfather, she didn't look at him, didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. The ride to Whitaker's ranch felt endless. The dry fields gave way to wider plains, then to land that slowly, almost cruelly, began to show signs of life. Greener patches, stronger fences, healthier livestock. By the time they reached the outer gates, the difference was undeniable. Whitaker hadn't just survived the drought. He had thrived in it. The ranch rose ahead like a fortress. Tall wooden fencing reinforced with iron. Guard towers at the corners. Riders patrolling the perimeter with rifles slung across their backs. This wasn't just a ranch. It was a kingdom. And Eliza had just been delivered into its hands. As the gates opened, she noticed something else. People. Workers moving quickly, heads down. Women carrying supplies. Men tending to horses. But none of them spoke. None of them laughed. And none of them looked free. Eliza's chest tightened again. This wasn't a place you came to work. This was a place you were kept. Whitaker dismounted smoothly, handing his reins to a waiting hand. He didn't look back to see if she followed. He didn't need to, because now she had nowhere else to go. Eliza slid off the horse, her legs stiff, her heart heavier than ever before. As she stepped forward into the ranch, she felt it settle over her, like a shadow. The truth. She wasn't a guest. She wasn't a worker. She wasn't even a person here. She was property. And judging by the silent, broken faces around her, she wasn't the first. But deep inside, beneath the fear and the anger and the betrayal, something else remained. Small, quiet, unbroken. Defiance. And as Eliza Carter crossed into the world of Baron Hale Whitaker, she made a promise to herself. They might have bought her, but they would never own her. The first thing Eliza Carter noticed about Whitaker's ranch was the silence. Not the natural kind, the quiet of open plains or resting cattle. This silence was different. It was controlled, manufactured, heavy. It settled into the bones of the place like something alive, something watching. Her first night passed without sleep. They had given her a small room in the far end of the main house, not locked, not guarded from the outside. At first, that almost felt like mercy. It wasn't. Because as she lay there, staring at the ceiling, she realized something far worse. She didn't need a lock. There was nowhere to go. Even if she ran, she wouldn't make it past the fences. Even if she reached the open land, there was nothing but miles of exposure, and riders who knew the terrain better than she ever could. The ranch wasn't built to keep people in with chains. It was built to make escape impossible. Morning came early. A knock on her door. Sharp, precise. "Up," a woman's voice called. "You work here now." Eliza sat up slowly, her body stiff, her thoughts still catching up to reality. For a moment, she almost forgot where she was. Then it came rushing back. The deal. The ride. Whitaker. Her jaw tightened. "I'm coming," she said. The woman waiting outside was older. Mid-40s maybe. Hard lines etched into her face, not from age, but from years of endurance. "This way," she said, turning without waiting. Eliza followed her through narrow hallways and out into the yard. The ranch was already alive with movement. Men hauling feed, horses being saddled. Workers moving quickly, efficiently, like parts of a machine that never stopped running. No one lingered. No one spoke more than necessary. No one smiled. "Name's Martha," the woman said as they walked. "You listen close, you might last." "Might?" Eliza asked. Martha glanced at her, just once. "Depends how fast you learn." They stopped near a long wooden table, where several women were already working. Cleaning tools, sorting supplies, preparing food. "This is your place," Martha said. "Kitchen, laundry, whatever's needed. You don't wander. You don't ask questions. You don't draw attention." Eliza folded her arms slightly. "And if I do?" Martha didn't answer right away. Instead, she nodded toward the far end of the yard. Eliza followed her gaze. Two men stood there, holding another worker between them, a young boy, maybe 16. His face was pale, terrified. Whitaker stood in front of him, calm, still. "First week," Martha said quietly. "Tried to take a horse." Eliza's stomach tightened. Whitaker said something, too low to hear. The boy shook his head rapidly, pleading. Then, a single gunshot. The sound cracked through the air like lightning. The boy dropped instantly. No warning, no hesitation, no emotion. Eliza froze. Everything inside her went cold. Whitaker lowered the gun slowly, handing it back to one of his men, as if nothing had happened, as if it were routine. Because it was. "Now you know," Martha said, her voice flat. "No second chances here." Eliza swallowed hard, forcing herself to breathe again. Fear rose fast, sharp, overwhelming. But beneath it, something else followed. Anger. The days that followed blurred together. Work, silence, observation. Eliza kept her head down, just like Martha told her. She scrubbed floors, carried water, sorted supplies. She spoke only when necessary. She avoided eye contact. Outwardly, she learned fast. Inwardly, she watched everything. Every movement, every routine, every weakness. The guards rotated every 6 hours. 2 at the main gate, 4 along the perimeter, more at night. The fences weren't just wood, they were reinforced with wire, thick and unforgiving. Horses were kept under constant watch, saddles locked away after dark. This wasn't just control, it was strategy. Whitaker had built a system designed to break people before they even tried to resist. And for most of them, it worked. But Eliza noticed something else. Something small. Something different. At the far edge of the ranch, near the outer fields, there was always a rider. Alone, separate. He didn't follow the same patterns as the others. Didn't linger in groups. Didn't bark orders or enforce rules. He just watched. Always watching. The first time she saw him, he was standing beside his horse, scanning the horizon, tall, lean, still as stone. The men called him Creed, Jonah Creed. No one said much more than that. No stories, no gossip, just the name, and silence after it. Eliza tried not to pay attention, tried to focus on surviving, but her eyes kept drifting back to him, because something about him didn't fit. He wasn't afraid of Whitaker. You could see it in the way he stood, shoulders steady, gaze level. Didn't rush. But he also wasn't loyal. Not in the way the others were. There was distance there, a line he never crossed. And Whitaker let him. That was the strangest part of all. One afternoon, Eliza made her first mistake. It was small, barely noticeable. But on this ranch, small mistakes had a way of becoming big ones. She lingered, just a moment too long, watching the riders prepare near the stables, trying to map their movements in her mind. She didn't see Whitaker approach. "You're not assigned here." His voice came from behind her, calm, controlled, and far too close. Eliza turned slowly. He stood just a few feet away, his eyes fixed on her, measuring, calculating. "I finished my work," she said carefully. "And decided to observe mine?" he asked. Her pulse quickened. "Say the wrong thing and you're dead." She knew that now. "I was looking for more to do," she replied. A lie, but a controlled one. Whitaker stepped closer, not threatening, not loud, just closer. "You're different," he said. It wasn't a compliment, it was a warning. Eliza held his gaze for a second too long. A mistake. A flicker of something passed through his expression. Not anger. Interest. That was worse. "Different doesn't last long here." Then he turned and walked away. Just like that. No punishment. No consequence. But somehow, that felt more dangerous than anything else. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep again. Whitaker's words echoed in her mind. Different doesn't last long. Maybe he was right. Maybe this place crushed anything that resisted it. Maybe survival meant becoming like the others, quiet, obedient, invisible. But as she stared into the darkness, she knew one thing for certain. She couldn't stay like this, couldn't live like this, couldn't become one of them. So she made a decision. Not reckless, not desperate, calculated. She would escape. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon, and when she did, she wouldn't fail. Over the next few days, Eliza became even quieter, more obedient, more invisible. On the surface, she adapted. Underneath, she prepared. She memorized patrol routes, counted steps between buildings, noted which gates creaked and which stayed silent. She even began watching the horses, learning which ones were fastest, which were calm under pressure. Every detail mattered. Every second counted. Because she knew she would only get one chance. And then, everything changed. One evening as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long across the ranch, Eliza slipped away from the main house. Just for a moment. Just long enough to confirm something. Moved carefully along the edge of the fence, her heart steady, her steps quiet. Almost there. Almost, "You're doing it wrong." The voice came out of nowhere. Low, calm, close. Eliza spun around, her heart slamming against her ribs. And there he was, Jonah Creed, standing just behind her, watching, always watching. For a split second, neither of them spoke. Then he glanced toward the fence. "If you climb there," he said, "you'll hit the wire halfway up. Tear your hands open before you even make it over." Eliza's breath caught. He knew. Of course he knew. "You going to report me?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear rising inside her. He didn't answer right away, just studied her. Then, no. The word landed heavier than she expected. Eliza frowned slightly. "Why not?" Jonah stepped closer. Not threatening, not aggressive, just enough to lower his voice. "Because if you try it like this," he said, "you won't make it past the outer gate." A pause. "Then, you'll be dead before sunrise." The same calm tone, the same certainty, but there was something else beneath it now. Not cruelty, not warning. Something almost like concern. Eliza searched his face, trying to understand, trying to figure out what he wanted. "What do you want?" she asked quietly. Jonah held her gaze for a long moment. Then he said something that shifted everything. "If you're going to run," a pause, "do it right." And just like that, the rules of the ranch changed. Not on the surface, not for anyone else, but for Eliza Carter, the game had begun. The wind had changed. Eliza noticed it first in the way the dust moved, no longer drifting aimlessly, but cutting across the land in sharp, restless lines. A storm was building somewhere beyond the horizon. Out here, storms didn't just arrive. They warned you first, just like danger. Since that night at the fence, nothing had changed, and everything had. Eliza still worked the same hours, still kept her head down, still followed every rule Whitaker's ranch demanded. But now, she wasn't alone in what she knew. Jonah Creed had seen her, not just standing at the fence, but planning, calculating, refusing to break. And instead of stopping her, he had stepped closer. Days passed before she saw him again, not because he disappeared, but because he made sure she never caught him looking. Still, she felt it, that quiet presence at the edge of things, watching, waiting. It was late afternoon when he finally approached her again. Eliza was near the supply shed, hauling a bucket of water, her arms aching, her thoughts running through the same escape routes she had memorized a dozen times over. "Too slow." His voice came from behind her again, low, controlled, familiar now in a way that unsettled her. She didn't turn right away. "You always sneak up on people?" she asked. "Only the ones who don't listen." That made her glance back. Jonah stood a few steps away, arms relaxed at his sides, eyes scanning the yard before settling on her. "You're dragging your right foot," he said. "Leaves a pattern. I'm carrying water, not escaping." "You move the same way when you think no one's watching," he replied. A beat. They notice patterns here. Eliza straightened slightly, adjusting her stance without realizing it. Jonah saw. Of course he did. "That better?" she asked. He studied her for a second, then gave a small nod. "Better." And just like that, he turned to leave. No explanation, no lingering. Just gone. That was how it started. Not with trust, not with friendship, but with corrections. Small, precise, dangerous. Over the next week, Jonah never spoke to her for more than a few seconds at a time. Always in passing, always when no one else was close enough to hear. And always about one thing: survival. Don't look at the guards when they pass. Makes them remember you. Switch hands when you carry weight. One-sided strain slows you down. That gate sticks at the hinge. If you force it, it'll make noise. Every word mattered. Every detail sharpened her. And Eliza realized something quickly. He wasn't warning her. He was training her. But that raised a question she couldn't ignore. Why? The answer didn't come easily. Because Jonah Creed wasn't easy. He didn't offer pieces of himself, didn't explain, didn't soften. He existed in fragments, glances, movements, silence. And yet, there was something beneath it. Something controlled, something restrained, like a man constantly holding back, more than he allowed anyone to see. The truth revealed itself the night everything went wrong. Eliza hadn't planned to run yet. She knew she wasn't ready. But opportunity has a way of tempting even the careful ones. And that night, the guards were thinner than usual. 2 riders hadn't returned from the outer fields. Another had been pulled to the main house. A gap. Small, but real. Eliza saw it immediately. Her heart started racing. Not fear, instinct. This could work. If she moved fast, if she stayed quiet, if she didn't think too much. She slipped away from the main house just after dark. No one stopped her. No one noticed, just like she had practiced. Step by step, she moved along the shadows, keeping low, staying close to the fence line. The gate was ahead, closer than it had ever felt before. Freedom. It was right there. Then, a hand grabbed her arm. Hard, fast, unforgiving. Eliza gasped, spinning around, and found herself face to face with a guard. "Thought you could just walk out?" he snarled. Her heart dropped. No, no, no. She twisted, trying to break free, but his grip tightened. "Whitaker's gonna love this," he said, dragging her back toward the yard. Panic surged through her. Not like before. Not cold, not quiet. This was different. This was the kind of fear that screamed. Because now she knew what happened to people who tried to escape. She had seen it. He was pulling her past the stables now, past the main yard, straight toward the house, toward Whitaker. Let her go. The voice cut through the darkness. Calm, controlled. The guard stopped. Turned. Jonah stepped out of the shadows. For a moment, no one moved. The tension snapped tight between them. "This ain't your business, Creed," the guard said. She tried to run. Jonah's gaze flicked briefly to Eliza, quick, assessing. Then back to the guard. "I said let her go." The guard laughed under his breath. Or what? That was the wrong question. Even Eliza knew it. Because something shifted in Jonah's stance. Not aggression, not anger, something colder, more final. "You don't want to find out," Jonah said quietly. The silence that followed was heavy, dangerous. Then, slowly, the guard released her. Not out of respect, out of instinct. He stepped back, raising his hand slightly. "Fine, she's your problem." Jonah didn't respond, didn't move, didn't relax. Not until the guard turned and walked away. Eliza stumbled back, her breath uneven, her pulse racing. Jonah didn't look at her right away, didn't ask if she was okay. Instead, he said, "You're worse than I thought." The words hit harder than she expected. "I almost made it," she shot back. "No," he said flatly, "you almost died." That shut her up. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Jonah finally looked at her. Really looked. "You moved too soon," he said. "You didn't account for rotation changes. You didn't watch the outer line." Eliza clenched her fists. "I saw an opening." "You saw what you wanted to see," he corrected. A pause. Then, quieter. "That's how people get killed here." The anger rose fast. Hot, sharp. "I didn't ask for your help," she said. "No," he replied. "You didn't." Another step closer. "But you're getting it anyway." That stopped her. Not because of the words, but because of how he said them. Not forceful, not demanding. Certain. "Why?" she asked. The question finally out in the open. Jonah didn't answer immediately. His jaw tightened slightly. His gaze shifted just for a second, and in that moment, she saw it. Something buried, something heavy, something that didn't belong to Whitaker's world. "I've seen what happens to people who try to leave," he said finally. Eliza held his gaze. "So have I." A beat. "Then I've also seen what happens to the ones who don't." That landed differently. Because it wasn't about fear. It was about something worse. Living without ever trying. Jonah stepped back. Distance again. Control again. "You want out?" he said. Eliza didn't hesitate. "Yes." A long pause. Then he nodded. "Then you stop thinking like someone desperate," he said, "and start thinking like someone who wants to survive." The next few days changed everything. Because now, there was no pretending, no guessing, no distance between what she wanted and what she was preparing for. Jonah didn't just correct her anymore. He guided her. Carefully, quietly, dangerously. He showed her where the fence dipped slightly near the east ridge, where the wire was older, weaker. He pointed out which horses could handle gunfire and which would panic. He explained how Whitaker's riders tracked escapees, not just by sight, but by patterns. "Most people run straight," he said. "They think distance saves them." "And it doesn't?" Eliza asked. Jonah shook his head slightly. "Not here." But even as he helped her, he never got close. Not really. There was always a line, an invisible one. And Eliza began to understand. He wasn't just protecting her, he was protecting something else. Himself. Because helping her was dangerous. Not just if they got caught, but because of what it meant. The truth came one night, unspoken, but undeniable. They stood near the outer ridge, watching the horizon. The storm from days ago had finally arrived, clouds thick, air heavy, lightning flickering in the distance. "Eliza," Jonah said quietly. She looked at him. "This only works once." Her chest tightened. "I know. If we do this, there's no coming back." "I'm not coming back," she said firmly. A pause. Then, "That's not what I meant." She studied him then, really studied him, and for the first time, she saw it clearly. He wasn't afraid of Whitaker. He wasn't afraid of the ranch. He was afraid of something else, something deeper. "Why are you really helping me?" she asked. Jonah didn't look at her, didn't answer right away, but when he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. "Because no one helped her." Eliza's breath caught. He didn't explain. Didn't need to. And in that moment, everything changed. This wasn't just escape anymore. It wasn't just survival. It was something heavier. Something personal. Something dangerous, in a way bullets and fences could never be. Because now, they weren't just fighting Whitaker. They were fighting what he had already taken. And that kind of fight never ends clean. The storm didn't arrive quietly. It rolled in like it had something to settle. The sky turned black long before night fully fell, clouds folding over each other in thick, violent waves. The wind followed, sharp and restless, kicking dust into spirals across the ranch yard. People moved faster. Voices grew tighter. Storms made men uneasy, and uneasy men made mistakes. Eliza stood near the back of the supply shed, her hands still, her breathing controlled. But inside, everything was moving. Fast, sharp, final. Tonight. Jonah's voice from earlier echoed in her mind. Tonight. No hesitation, no explanation, just certainty. And somehow, that was enough. She had spent days preparing for this moment, memorizing every step, every turn, every sound the gates made when they opened. She knew which guards drank more than they should when the weather turned bad, knew which horses would stay steady when thunder cracked overhead, knew exactly where the fence weakened along the east ridge. Everything had led here. And yet, as the first drop of rain hit the ground, her heart slammed harder than it ever had before. Don't think. The voice came from the shadows. Jonah. He stepped beside her, his presence as calm as the storm was wild. You start thinking now, you freeze, he said quietly. And if you freeze, I die, Eliza finished. He didn't nod, didn't need to. Lightning split the sky. For a brief second, the entire ranch lit up, every fence, every rider, every shadow exposed. Then darkness swallowed it again. Time, Jonah said. They moved, fast, low, silent. The first stretch was the easiest. From the shed to the stables, covered ground, familiar paths, workers distracted by the storm. No one noticed them slip through. No one called out. Just like they planned. Inside the stables, the air was thick, with the scent of hay and wet leather. Horses shifted nervously, reacting to the storm building outside. Eliza moved straight to the stall Jonah had shown her days ago. A dark mare, lean, strong, steady under pressure. You trust her? Eliza whispered. Jonah was already saddling his own horse. More than most people here. That was answer enough. Thunder cracked again, louder this time. Closer. The horses flinched. Eliza didn't. Her hands moved quickly, securing the saddle, tightening the straps just like she had practiced. No wasted motion, no hesitation. Jonah glanced at her once, just once, and for the first time, there was something in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Approval. Go, he said. They pushed out of the stables into the storm. Rain came down harder now, sharp, relentless, blurring the edges of everything. Perfect cover, but also perfect chaos. They rode along the back line, keeping close to the fence, just far enough from the main yard to avoid attention. Eliza's heart pounded in rhythm with the horse beneath her. Every second stretched, every shadow felt alive. Halfway there, almost. Then, a shout. Behind them. Riders. The word cut through the storm like a blade. Eliza's stomach dropped. No. Too soon. Jonah didn't look back. Keep moving, he said sharply. Hooves thundered behind them now, fast, closing the distance. They had been seen. Gunfire cracked through the rain. A bullet tore past Eliza's shoulder, close enough to feel the air shift. Her breath hitched, but she didn't slow. Couldn't. Don't ride straight, Jonah shouted. What he had taught her. Most people run straight. She pulled the reins hard, cutting left suddenly, then right, breaking pattern, breaking rhythm. Another shot rang out. Missed. The fence was ahead now. The weak point. The only way out. Jonah reached it first, jumping off his horse before it fully stopped. Eliza, he called. She was already moving. Sliding down, her boots hitting mud hard. The wire. Old, worn, but still strong enough to stop someone unprepared. Jonah pulled the knife from his belt, one he had hidden for this exact moment, and started cutting through the weakened section. Hurry, Eliza said, her voice tight. I am, he replied, his movements fast but controlled. Behind them, the riders were getting closer. Too close. Another gunshot. This one hit. Jonah's shoulder jerked back slightly. Eliza froze. You're hit. It's nothing, he snapped. Cut the lower line. She didn't argue. Didn't hesitate. She dropped to her knees in the mud, grabbing the wire, pulling hard as Jonah cut through it. The metal snapped. Once, twice, then an opening. Go, Jonah shouted. Eliza didn't think. Didn't look back. She grabbed the reins, pulled herself onto the horse, and rode straight through the broken fence. Freedom. It was right there. She didn't stop. Didn't slow. Didn't breathe. The land stretched wide ahead of her, rain blurring everything into motion. Behind her, more gunshots, more shouting, more chaos. But something felt wrong. Jonah, he wasn't beside her. Eliza turned, just for a second, and what she saw changed everything. Jonah was still at the fence, holding the line, fighting them off alone. 3 riders had reached him already. more coming behind. He fired once, clean, precise. One man dropped, but the others kept coming. He wasn't trying to escape. He was buying her time. No. Eliza's grip tightened on the reins. Her heart pounded harder than ever. This wasn't the plan. He wasn't supposed to stay behind. Another shot rang out. Jonah staggered slightly. Still standing. Still fighting. And suddenly, Eliza understood. This was never just escape for him. It was sacrifice. You go, or you die. His voice echoed in her mind. She had a choice, right now. Keep riding, live, be free, or turn back and risk everything. Her breath came sharp, fast, unsteady. Freedom was ahead. But Jonah was behind. And for the first time since this began, Eliza didn't think about survival. She thought about something else, something stronger. She pulled the reins hard. The horse reared slightly, resisting, then turned. Back toward the gunfire. Back toward the storm. Back toward him. Idiot, Jonah muttered under his breath as he saw her coming. But there was something else in his expression now, something he hadn't allowed before. Relief. Eliza rode straight into the chaos. No hesitation, no fear, only decision. She reached him just as another rider closed in. Without thinking, she grabbed the rifle, strapped to her saddle, and fired. The shot hit. The rider fell. Jonah didn't waste the moment. He moved fast, grabbing his horse, pulling himself up, despite the blood running down his arm. "You're not supposed to come back," he said. Eliza met his gaze. Another wave of riders approached. Closer. Faster. Angrier. "Now we run," Jonah said. And this time, they rode together. The storm swallowed them whole. Rain, thunder, darkness, all of it working in their favor now. Behind them, the ranch faded. The shouting grew distant. The gunshots stopped. But neither of them slowed. Not yet. Not until the land stretched wide and empty again. Not until the fences were far behind. Not until the world felt open. Finally, Jonah pulled his horse to a stop. Eliza followed, her breath ragged, her body shaking, not from fear, from everything. They were out. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The storm softened around them, the world quiet again. "You shouldn't have come back," Jonah said finally. Eliza looked at him, really looked, at the blood on his shoulder, at the exhaustion in his eyes, at the man who had risked everything for her. "I wasn't leaving you," she said. Silence followed, but it wasn't empty, because something had changed. This wasn't just escape anymore. It was something deeper. Something that would pull them back into the fire, whether they wanted it or not. And far behind them, through the storm and the darkness, Baron Whitaker was watching the broken fence, and smiling, because men like him didn't lose what they owned. They hunted it. Dawn came slow. Not gentle, just slow. The storm had passed in the night, leaving the land soaked and restless. Mud clung to the earth like memory, heavy and unwilling to let go. The sky was pale, bruised with the last traces of thunderclouds drifting away. Eliza Carter stood at the edge of a ridge, watching the horizon burn faintly gold. Freedom should have felt different, lighter, cleaner, but it didn't. Because freedom, she realized, wasn't just about leaving something behind. Sometimes, it was about going back. Behind her, Jonah Creed sat against a rock, his shoulder wrapped tightly in cloth, darkened with dried blood. His breathing was steady but shallow, the kind of steady that came from discipline, not comfort. "You should be lying down," Eliza said without turning. "I am," Jonah replied dryly. She almost smiled. Almost. They had ridden through the night, pushing as far as the horses could carry them before exhaustion forced a stop. No fire, no noise, just distance. But distance wasn't safety. Not from a man like Whitaker. Eliza knew that now. You didn't escape men like him. You delayed them. "They'll track us," Jonah said after a moment. "I know. You left a trail. I know." He studied her from where he sat, something unreadable in his expression. "You're not planning to keep running," he said. It wasn't a question. Eliza turned then, met his gaze. "No." The words settled between them like a loaded weapon. Jonah exhaled slowly, leaning his head back against the rock. "That ranch," he said quietly. "You think burning it down fixes anything?" "No," Eliza replied. A pause. Then, "But ending him does." Jonah didn't answer right away. Didn't argue. Didn't agree. Because deep down, he already knew. Whitaker wasn't just a man. He was a system. A structure built on fear, control, and the belief that no one would ever stand against him and win. And as long as he stood, that system stood with him. "We'd need more than just the two of us," Jonah said finally. Eliza nodded. "I know where to find them." They reached the camp by nightfall. Hidden deep in a narrow canyon, shielded by rock and shadow, it was the kind of place you wouldn't find unless you were looking for it, or running from something that wanted you dead. Men and women emerged from the darkness as they approached, weapons drawn, eyes sharp, suspicious. "State your business," one of them called out. Eliza stepped forward, her voice steady. "I'm looking for people who've lost something to Whitaker." Silence followed, heavy, measured. Then a figure stepped out from the group, tall, weathered, eyes hardened by years of survival. "You found them," he said. His name was Cole Mercer. Former foreman, former loyal man, former everything Whitaker had taken and broken. They sat around a low fire that night, the flames small but steady, casting long shadows against the canyon walls. Eliza told her story. Not all of it, just enough. The sale, the ranch, the escape. Jonah said nothing, didn't need to. His presence alone told the rest. Cole listened carefully, his expression never changing. But when she finished, something in his eyes shifted. "You want to go back," he said. "Yes." "You want to fight him?" "Yes." Cole leaned back slightly, studying her. "People have tried," he said. "They didn't come back." Eliza held his gaze. "I did." That was enough. The group wasn't large, a dozen, maybe more. Men who had lost land, women who had lost family, people who had nothing left, except the will to take something back. "We don't fight fair," Cole said the next morning. Neither does he. The plan wasn't complicated. It didn't need to be. Whitaker relied on control, on routine, on the belief that no one would dare challenge him directly. So they wouldn't. They would break the edges first, cut supply lines, spook the horses, set fire where it hurt, make the ranch unstable, unpredictable, afraid. And then, when Whitaker stepped out to reclaim control, they would be waiting. The first fires started in the outer barns, small, contained, just enough to spread panic. The second hit the feed stores, faster, hotter, harder to control. By the third, the ranch was no longer calm, no longer controlled. It was chaos. Eliza watched it from a distance, her chest tight, her pulse steady. This place had once been her prison. Now it was unraveling. "You ready?" Jonah asked beside her. She didn't look at him. Yes. They moved in before dawn. The same hour Eliza had once arrived as property. Now she returned as something else. The gates were open, not by accident, by design. Smoke still lingered in the air, thick and bitter. Workers ran in different directions, trying to contain damage they couldn't control. Guards shouted over each other, breaking formation, losing structure, exactly as planned. Isa stepped through the gates. No hesitation, no fear. This place had taken everything from her. Now, she was taking it back. Gunfire erupted from the far side of the yard. Cole and his group, drawing attention, holding the line. Eliza moved toward the main house, Jonah close behind. "He'll be there," Jonah said. "I know." They entered without resistance. The halls were empty, too empty. Whitaker wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was waiting. They found him in the main room, standing exactly where Eliza had first seen him, calm, still, untouched by the chaos outside. "I was wondering when you'd come back," he said. Eliza stepped forward slowly, every step deliberate, every breath controlled. "You should have stayed gone," Whitaker continued. "You should have let me go," she replied. A flicker of something crossed his face. Amusement. "You think this ends with me?" he asked. "You think killing one man breaks what I built?" "No," Eliza said. A pause. "But it's a start." Whitaker's gaze shifted briefly to Jonah. Recognition, then back to her. Interesting choice. Eliza didn't respond. Didn't look away. Because this wasn't about words anymore. Whitaker moved first. Fast, precise. The kind of movement that came from years of control, of knowing exactly how situations ended before they began. But this time, he was wrong. The fight wasn't long. It wasn't clean. It wasn't controlled. Because Eliza didn't fight like someone trained. She fought like someone who had survived, who had endured, who had nothing left to lose. And that was something Whitaker had never learned to face. He staggered back, just once, just enough. Enough for it to end. Silence followed. The kind that didn't feel heavy, didn't feel forced. This one felt different, final. Outside, the gunfire slowed, then stopped. The ranch stood in pieces, burning, broken, no longer untouchable. Eliza stepped outside slowly. The air felt different, not cleaner, not lighter, but free. Cole approached, his expression unreadable. "It's done?" he asked. Eliza nodded. Around them people moved differently now. Not like workers, not like prisoners, like something else. Like people who had just remembered what it meant to stand. Jonah stepped beside her, quiet as always. "You could leave now," he said. Eliza looked out over the land. The same land that had once trapped her. "I could," she said. A pause. "But I won't." Because freedom wasn't just leaving. It was choosing what came next. And for the first time in a long time, that choice was hers. The sun rose higher, burning away the last shadows of the storm. And for the first time, the horizon didn't feel like something to escape. It felt like something to walk toward.